From me.
Oh, great, thank you. Board members, we have a consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, or are there any changes that you would like?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Just before we go to the
Okay.
motion,
1 second. Go.
just some very minor changes. Shelley, if you could just check the names and positions on the agenda on page 1. Just think we need Deborah as president and Aaron as vice president, and myself as secretary. Okay, and then on item 19, we didn't take any action. Should we note that? Just want to be sure, Brian, if you go into closed session, about a closed session, you have to make a note.
Then no action is necessary.
Yeah, where's that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
I think that's a good point. No action is necessary. So,
Yeah, we got to close that out. So, yeah, okay. That's it for me.
Then I just had a quick question on page 5 of the financials. I was looking and seems to be a fairly sizable deficit to the budget on tax revenue. Is that just delinquencies, and is that fairly typical for this time of year?
Pretty typical.
It could be. Estimate the monthly, the ratios based on historical that may or may not come in.
Got it.
People will pay.
It's hard to predict, I imagine. Yeah.
Okay, with those changes, do I have a motion,
I
Bruce?
think Bruce made the motions.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It does. Going to a regular agenda. Item 14. To review and consider approval of the district's fiscal 2022-2023 draft audit report.
How are y'all doing?
Good, how are you?
I'll have to report. I do want to note one change that we'd like to make for the final. And if you look on pages 10 and 11, you'll see a general fund and a debt service fund. Well, we have no more bonded debt, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to maintain a debt service fund. So we're going to collapse that fund into the general fund. It won't change the numbers at all. It's just you're only gonna see one fund.
Does that make it unrestricted then? Is that what you're saying? That goes into the unrestricted or unassigned?
Right. We've been maintaining this
Yeah,
fund, but we
yeah.
don't have any debt.
Right.
So it's really general fund monies now. So we're gonna do it this year, just
Okay.
collapse it.
All right.
There's 2 other MUDs that have no bonded debt, 1 and 7. And we've already collapsed 1, but we're gonna collapse 6 and 7. Sure. I had one other minor change on page 44. We have 5 board members, but I have 6 answers of resident. So I'll get rid of that extra answer.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Other than that, I'm sure Brian's crew is gonna kind of beat it up a little bit, and we'll make another pass through, make sure we don't have any typos, kind of thing, but.
I just had one question. At the trustees meeting under the management discussion and analysis, there was a suggestion made, I think agreed to, that there would be some entry to make it consistent.
Yes.
Should the MUDs have the same wording as the trustees?
Yeah, that's a good point. And we've had some preliminary discussions. We've drafted a draft note for the MD&A of the WWA.
Mhm.
And we're gonna review that today at 4, make sure that everybody's okay with it. Hugh with MUD 47 requested that it also be included in his MUD.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna see how the WWA feels about the comment that we've added, and if they're okay, and it's okay with you, we'd like to add the comment. We talked about adding it to all the MUDs. this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Sure you're on it.
Yeah. And it doesn't say a whole lot because we were just kind of precluded from saying a whole lot, but it at least has at least addresses the internal controls, which nowhere else in this report doesn't. It does not currently. So
Yeah.
We thought it was a good ad.
Do I need to take a motion on approval of the, all right, do I have a motion to approve the draft audit report?
I make that motion subject to the changes that have been indicated.
Second, second, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Receive a report regarding proposed amendment to the Montgomery Central Appraisal District 2024 budget in connection with the election process for the MCAD Board of Directors.
Right. Okay, we just went through the election for Arthur, letting you know that the board of directors, that he is considered for the special district. Also, I have in your budget on your quarterly payments that you pay MCAD every year, which is a little over $1,900 a quarter. There has been a change to Senate Bill 2 regarding the board of directors. The board is now going to be a 9-member board. As of now, it's 5, or it's 6. 5 that's elected by the jurisdictions and 1 that's mandated by the state, which is the county tax assessor. 3 will be elected at this point. And they have the supplemental budget in here for the election that they're going to contract with the county. And your portion is $169, almost $170, that will be added to your quarterly payments. And then if they don't use the full $350, you'll get a credit on your 4th quarter installment. And then I have Arthur to finish off this.
Madam President, board members, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for your service. I'd like to thank you for the support when I ran in special purpose districts, and then I went into the general election because for your support, I was able to win special purpose districts. On the 25th of January, the 5 elected by the jurisdictions will be seated, sworn in, and then we'll take on regular business for season 24 and 25. Special purpose districts in this county are very important. There's about 100 special purpose districts in this county and growing. A lot of them are MUD districts, special utility districts, the township. So you guys do a lot to contribute to the quality of life of Montgomery County and why do people keep coming here. They see growth, they see opportunity. So continue to do what you do. You have value. We wanted to be here today to talk face to face. We've sent out information. We have a cover letter explaining the supplemental budget signed by the Secretary of the Board, Tammy McRae. Little history. Back in June, MCAD approved a draft budget that was submitted to all the taxing units. The taxing units could review that and see what the impact was going to be for your budget. We got back good support, and in September, the MCAD board approved the budget. But Senate Bill 2 that was passed mandated that the appraisal district has to run the general election for the 3 citizens that will get elected and be seated on the MCAD board. Now, those citizens that win will be seated in July. One thing is the MCAD board has no taxing power, has no ability to charge fees to raise the additional $350,000 for the special election. Our chief appraiser, Janet Jennings Doyle, met with Sue Harvey, which we all know is the county elections director, runs a great election for us. It's reliable, count on it. So we decided as a board to move the election to the county and be a participant in the county. For the $350,000 is her best estimate, Sue Harvey's estimate, to be part of the general election in November. As Jeannie has indicated, should we spend less, we would give it credit back to each tax jurisdiction in the fourth quarter. And it's 350,000 is applies to all the taxing jurisdictions based on formula. But we really wanted to come here today and talk about this face to face. So people have asked the question, so if you're interested to run, what happens? As a citizen, you'll get a packet, similar to like a mud packet, you'll have to fill out. There's a $400 filing fee, and you take it up to the county and you file it. Filing is open today on the 17th, and filing closes on the 16th of February. And a little background, why we decided to go with the county. We wanted a good election for the first time and continue that tradition as we go forward. We have no experience at MCAD to run an election, so we wanted to do that. As we've learned from Brian over the years, running an election by yourself has become more and more difficult, more burdensome, and it's a good way to go with the county and be part of the total. And I'll let citizens know where to go, where to vote. So that's a summary to report. We're open to answer any questions, but we appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys today.
So there was a second letter from Janet Jennings Doyle, which has me a little confused. First quarterly payment due by December 31st, 2022. Are we off a year or something, or I'm?
We are. You're exactly right.
Okay, so that should be 2023 and then the remainder 2024. Okay. And then I noticed the number 1993, which when you multiply it out becomes to $1 more than the 7,971 that we are due from us.
What you're looking up for the year is $7,900, a little over that. You divide that by 4 and it's 1993.
Well, they rounded up.
Yes, they did.
I-
It's a long calculation and it's,
It's okay.
yes, they rounded up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I try not to let things get by me as best I can.
For which we are very grateful.
Doing a damn good job.
That's exactly right. Item 16. Grant exemptions from taxation for 2024 and the adoption of a resolution in connection therewith.
This is the annual exercise to consider your exemptions for 2024. As you know, the district has adopted a general residential homestead of 20%, which is the max allowable by law. The district is also historically granted a $10,000 over 65 and disabled exemption. We prepared the resolution based on the assumption that you grant the same exemptions as you had in the past, but if you'd like to consider alternative, exemptions, then now would be the time to consider that.
But the implication is if taxes go up, if tax receipts go up, then we're subject to another law related to the amount by which taxes can change, are we not?
What about the rollback?
Yeah.
Well, if you were to reduce the homestead exemption, which I can't imagine you would, but if you did, then yeah, we have to look at that, because you generate more revenue than you had past, but I have to look at how that calculation works for the purposes of the rollback.
Yeah, it's a general question, but that is implied in
Yeah,
a reduction. Yeah.
We got to tax rate time and we were doing those, those spreadsheets for.
I recall that.
Yeah, look at that, yes.
Okay. It's not relevant
Yeah,
for today.
well, really, it's about the over 65 and disabled,
Yeah.
because these districts made the decision several years back to go the max for the whole Woodlands community, and we've been uniform about that.
Yep.
Districts are not uniform on over 65 and disabled. There's a range of exemptions from 10,000 up to 30,500. So there's, there has been uniformity.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
Do I have a motion to grant the exemption?
I will make that motion to grant the exemption of $10,000 for over 65 and disabled, and also the 20% exemption, residential exemption. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Do we have a developer update on the Grogan's Mill Village Center? Aye.
Now, we are still in the design phase. We're hoping to have that wrapped up, March, April timeframe, at which point, we can see what construction is gonna look like. We're guessing, right now preliminary, it'll take 12 months, from start to finish from a construction estimate. As we get closer to wrapping up the design phase, I can kind of report back to you, in that regard, where we're at when we're gonna start breaking ground, and then what that timeline looks at that particular time.
Questions?
Is there a general contractor that's been contracted at this point? Okay.
Questions?
I'm still kind of curious about Fat Eatery. It's what is going to open in October, November, December, January, February. So it still looks like it's a ways away.
Last we heard was mid-February, I believe.
We got a lot of stuff to do. I just wondering
They
what's
have,
holding it up.
they have a lot of.
Not the township.
Just construction.
Item 18, received the regular monthly SJR Woodlands Division report, including updates on operation projects and public outreach.
Two items this month. The first is that the final report for wastewater strategic plan phase 2 will be loaded onto the Google Drive sometime by the end of the month. Once it's uploaded, we'll let you know so y'all can go review it. It's about 200 pages, just. The second item is prior to the meeting, I passed out this supplemental agreement. Got yellow highlights. It's a draft. This is basically showing the end of the study period on the wastewater plant 1 replacement and then the beginning of design and construction. So as you know, it took about 2 years to get to this point with all the input, discussions and meetings and about $2 million. What this supplemental agreement is doing is looking to move into the design phase. So the design phase is 2 to 3 years long. Average expected cost is about $35 million for engineering. You'll see the supplemental agreement shows 40 million because there's issuance cost, debt services needed, so on like that, which is hard. So that's also included. But this is a draft form. We are passing it out for y'all to start reviewing, comment on. Now, the next agenda item, Brian and Eric have some few things to go over, which may cause changes to this agreement, but did want to get it in front of you because we are on hold until we do have funds to move into design. Just a general reminder, the design and construction period for wastewater plant 1 is about a 6-year period. So just keep that in mind as we're moving forward. So it's not something you can buy overnight. Yes, sir.
In going back over the appendix to the March report, several critical items, mostly rotating types of things, pumps, etc. Blowers have a less than 5-year remaining useful life. And I can't recall if any of those are critical to the operation of wastewater treatment facility number 1. Can you identify, given the timeline that you have just mentioned to us, is there any concern that we might be approaching a critical failure mode?
Yes. So the original schedule that we laid out a year or 2 ago, where you start construction 27, you're done by 2030, we can get through that time frame.
Okay.
But if that's delayed a couple years or a year, 3 years, whatever it may be, then we do have to look at investing in blowers, motors, pumps, and other items that we were not originally considering. Remember when we started this process, there was rough numbers, about $100 million worth of work that needed to be done at wastewater plant 1. Because we had the regulatory of the peak flow, we had the aeration basins, which is about 20 million at this point, the numerous pumps and motors and valves. So as we go forward, we feel comfortable being able to basically take care of what we have now between now and 2030. But if it goes beyond that, then we're gonna have to take an assessment and see if we need to ask for funds now to do some Band-Aids, if you will.
But that would be lost money, wouldn't it, if you're going to eventually go to a whole new system?
It would be. That's one of the reasons we started the entire wastewater strategic plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the catalyst of the whole thing was the $20 million for aeration basins 1 and 2. Once those are in the ground, you're stuck with whatever process you have.
Right.
So that's the catalyst for.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Hey. On 19, to discuss the potential funding alternatives related to the SJR Woodlands Division proposed infrastructure projects.
This agenda item was put on in kind of a response to some responses I was getting from several directors across the Woodlands. Really asking what is this going to look like on the bills? How is it going to be funded? There was a comment at the OMUDs about bonds. There was just a lot of questions coming about. So the supplemental agreement, as Chris just mentioned, that kind of covers how it was handled in 2017 when bonds were required. And essentially SJA would sell a bond application and then identify a wholesale rate. And then a wholesale rate will be passed on to the districts and then on to the customer. It's just passed through. And so, you know, if you remember back last year through the 10-year plan, there was, you know, 630 some odd million contemplated for all the various things, AC, treatment plant, a few other things. And when you add all that up in a decade or so, you know, what does that look like on the water bill? And that was kind of some of the questions that I was getting. So, you know, looking at those numbers, that water bill could be pretty high, several $100s perhaps. So the question of bonds came up, and I started talking to Brian and Adam about the idea of, or different ideas, instead of it being on your water and sewer bill. And one of the items was to go back to the voters potentially to get bond authorization. That's how a lot of the infrastructure was built throughout the Woodlands, and it's pretty normal. Although this is kind of your second phase of infrastructure as it's getting old. There's some complications with that, just some inefficiencies, probably some maybe some higher costs a little bit, just because each MUD would have to do that, and each MUD would have to sell bonds every time there's a project that needs to go on. And instead of selling 5, 6, 7 bond applications, it could be 50, 60 across all the districts. And that's a little bit cumbersome and not efficient. So we started thinking there's other options, I think, out there. Another one was to go back to the voters and consider a rollback tax election. It's in your water bill, it's water and sewer rates. If you were selling bonds or adjusted your M&O tax rate, it would be on the tax side. So whether water bill or tax bill. So that's a different philosophy altogether. In this rollback tax option, you wouldn't sell your own bonds. SJA would continue to sell its bonds and then identify, you know, each district share, and then you would utilize your M&O tax revenues to pay that debt or pay on the bonds. So those are a few options. Really wanted to open up the discussion to the boards thus far, and really identify whether or not there's any strong opinions one way or the other. Is there more information that you feel like you need? When there's no decision to be made today, it's just more of to start this conversation, because depending on wherever we end up with, if we do go back to the voters or if we stay they have time ramifications, not only to keep projects on schedule, but also if you got to go back to the voters, that can only happen certain times of the year too. So, and building up to something like that could be pretty significant. So, no better time than the present to kind of start talking about what that would look like. Because ultimately, if you go down the road on one tranche, and this ends up being, you know, for all the projects, ends up being not just 6 bond applications for the treatment plant, but another few for the water and another few for all the other projects. You really want to stay consistent on how you handle that as the whole package comes together. So that's kind of, I'll throw that one out, just see where it goes. But that's the discussion we'd like y'all to think about. And again, no decisions obviously to be made today, but ideally probably, and I think some of the other boards have expressed this thus far, is We'd love to see, pros, cons. We'd love to see the financial analysis. What would this look like? What would that option look like? So we've kind of talked about putting that type of analysis together to bring back to the boards sooner than later. Whether or not it's next month, we'll try, but there's probably a lot of work to do. So if there's something that you're just really strongly opposed to one way or the other, that's probably would be good to know, but it's kind of.
I would like to know if it's remotely possible, Brian, to wake up our authorized but unissued. Can't wake it up. It's moribund.
That the top left with the current position of the AG's office on staleness, and these bonds being issued before the 2001 law change.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I think that would be a tough.
The question had to be asked, though.
Yeah, there hasn't been any authorization reached out of it. That's the thing.
Oh, okay,
Because I think
okay,
the
yeah,
authorization was from
early on.
late 90s.
Yeah, yeah.
And there hasn't been a single bond issue, and so we're what, 25 years past that. I think we've got a real challenge trying to convince the AG's office that it would not be stale. We're not having ever been used.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Attorney's report?
Nothing that's not separately on the agenda.
Oh, gosh, okay. And 21?
Speaking about them separately.
Okay. Exactly.
You've got a memo in the packet there about the elections and our recommendation to have the district participate jointly in the Montgomery County election cycle, May of this year. Similar to what we've done for the 2020 and 2022 election cycles. Happy to answer questions if you have them. If not, we do need a motion to authorize notification to the county of the district's intent to participate in the joint election.
Do I have that motion?
I'll make a motion that we authorize, we conclude that we wish to contract with the county to participate in joint elections. And secondly, to authorize Schwartz, Page, and Harding to notify the county of our intent, the district's intent to join the county's joint election. Is that wording adequate? Okay.
Right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
All right, one more agenda item for you related to the elections. We've got the supplemental agenda that was at the very front of your packet before the regular agenda. There are two items on there. We only need to take action on the first one. The second one, compensation for election officials, will be handled by Montgomery County since they'll be conducting the election on the district's behalf. We do need to take action to call the election, adopt the order, declare Eric as the agent for the district.
Do I have that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? General Manager's report?
All right, I think we've covered most of my items. Just wanted to point out in your packet, there's included a letter that Jim wrote to the trustees and boards thanking everyone for the nice words in the resolution and the reception. I think that went very well. Wanted to point out that the general manager for SRA started this week, and the SRA has set up a reception for the Woodlands Buds to meet Aubrey on February 7th over at the treatment plant in the training center there. Sawdust from 5 to 6:30. 2, 7, 5. And the only other thing I have is to kick it over to John for the comms report.
Noon. Page 62 in your packet, communications report. There's a few pages there. You'll see our current communication pieces or sampling thereof. I wanted to spend one more time on page 65 there, the results of our annual report card of sorts. So we issued a community-wide survey last September, or September of 22, excuse me. And results of that informed to a large degree our one-year communications strategic plan. Well, we reissued that survey this past fall, 2023, so after a year. Let's see how we did. So we had 17 questions that we repeated there. And then I've given you the results here on those questions. Now, actually, I've given you some highlights. The full survey and all the associated data can be found using this QR code on the Google Drive. Want to dig into it, but I just wanted to give you, like I said, some highlights here. What we did. Overall, I think we did quite well. We actually improved on all fronts as far as building understanding in the community of our water system, of Woodlands Water, of the MUDs. And then and we also improved on favorability ratings as well. So that top question there, where does your drinking water come from? The correct answer increased by 24%. How much knowledge do you have regarding your municipal utility district? That increased to 8%. A lot or some responding 8% more on those fronts. Woodlands Water increased 15% knowledge levels. And then favorability for Woodlands Water, we increased 17%. MUDs increased 20%. And the unfavorable rating for MUDs, what is your opinion of your MUD? The unfavorable rating there dropped over half. Some marked improvements there. We put a lot of effort into helping folks better understand their water bill. We did some reformatting of the bill itself and some communication pieces surrounding that. So results there show that we increased clarity there and understanding of the water bill. We also added a few new questions. A couple surrounded infrastructure renewal. Trying to get a sense of where folks are at or how aware are they of the need for infrastructure renewal in our community. 53.6% say they're very aware or somewhat aware that water and sewer infrastructure will need to be replaced in coming years.
John,
Yeah.
that surprises the dickens out of me, unless people are just afraid of not knowing, if you know what I mean, because I don't think I've got a neighbor that has a clue that something like this will be happening in the future.
Well, let me say this about this survey. This is not, I don't want to pretend that it completely captures our entire community, right? This went out to 22,000 folks on our email contact list and then was dispersed via social media as well. So it does tend to channel into folks that we've been communicating with. Right.
About infrastructure changes in the future?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, certainly.
That's all right.
Yeah, so infrastructure has been a part of our messaging. It's been growing. It continues to grow going forward, of course. So there are folks left out of this survey. Now, we gauge effectiveness in other ways as well. Like I said, this is not the end all be all. And we will continue to gauge those folks so we can understand who they are and how better to reach out to them. So our 53.6% of our community are very aware or somewhat aware of infrastructure renewal. I don't know if we can stand on that. It might be, it's likely lower.
I just mentioned as a major priority in the future, because regardless of how we're going to bill bonds, water bills or whatever out there, more pre-education we can do with people, I think the easier it's going to be to make that transition.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why we're working with Yesterday Consultant, Holloway, and in a second, I'll talk to our strategic plan.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out one last thing here and give kudos to our customer service, billing, tax department, all the folks here that help our customers. 88% of folks that said they had been assisted by us said it was a satisfactory connection there. So they're doing a great job. Okay, well, I mentioned the strategic plan. So let me skip to page 68. This year's strategic plan was approved by the DOT last Wednesday. It is similar in construct to last year's strategic plan with the same 4 focus areas. But to Ron's point, you're going to see a much heavier emphasis on infrastructure through this year and beyond. And to assist with that, let's actually back up to page 67. Annual updates. So last year, you guys put out an annual update. It was very well received. We attached it to the water bill. We also sent it digitally and we posted it on the website. We had a very high open rate on those emails. Over 65% of folks opened it. We had a high click rate too. Folks were engaging with it. So I think it was a really important piece for you in getting messages out on the mud. This is something you would like to do again this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Well, we're excited to work with you on that. Eric and I can draft up some bullet points if you like and put those, hand those to you. You can work with that, see what you want to add, scrap, change, we'll wordsmith it, do some back and forth. And then if we're gung ho, we can get this on the January bill, which would go out in 2 weeks, or we can delay till March. That's fine too.
Do we need to take a vote on this kind of thing, or can it just proceed under the auspices of the Women's Water Agency?
It's not really specific. Didn't take a motion.
We haven't taken any.
Okay, all right. So we can work on it with you all. Okay. All right, very good.
Who should I reach out to?
Sorry. I reached out, put my hand up too fast. Sorry, Deborah. No, I happen to be on the education committee.
Speaking of education, I just want to give these flyers out to you here. This is an upcoming educational opportunity, one-day symposium. Gulf Coast Water Conservation Symposium on February 22nd. Your fellow directors, Paul Nelson, has been working with this since its inception back in the day. And well, the information on the flyer, again, it's an excellent one-day education opportunity. So please consider that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, our trustees report.
Yes, that's on pages 74 and 75. Let's see. I think one of the interesting aspects that was mentioned here is looking at how our organization works. And there's a suggestion of a specific analysis framework for that. SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But that comes in with certain restrictions, possibly, depending on what is discovered, or if indeed that's going forward. But I would also like to suggest another analytical lens, if you want to call it. It's pest analysis, political, economic, social, and technological. And if you want to add LE at the end, legal and environmental. So PESTLE, mortar as in mortar and pestle. But I haven't done any pest analysis in my career in the past. I've done the SWOT stuff, but that's been more project oriented as opposed to organizationally oriented. So anyway, that's I think it's a good thought, but I think the questions need to be asked as to why you're undergoing this kind of analysis. What's being accomplished? Because you end up with the internals, strengths, weaknesses, and then the externals, opportunities, threats. Then you have to pivot the table so you can come up with a set of strategies where you're aligning strengths with opportunities and threats, and you're aligning weaknesses with opportunities and threats. So you have a strategy and then action items deriving from those strategies. So it's a good heavy lift, but I think that it's an interesting process to go through. But like I say, my background of being project oriented with doing this kind of analysis as opposed to organizational.
The trustee did not authorize that to go forward. And deferred it, kicked it. So it probably will come up again, but happy to address it.
So, and everything else has been pretty much covered, already during this meeting.
One question on
Yeah.
the cornerstone, proposal and projects of there. Apparently the audit committee felt there was justification for what had been done and
Mhm.
but at a lower cost in the future. And that makes sense to me conceptually, but was that pretty much agreed to?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, I think the lobbyists, have been, I think, key in securing funding, for our effort. I mean, we are lower in the ranking system for achieving, for gaining funding for many projects. And their assistance working with congressional representatives has been invaluable. It's a relatively small investment, right, versus the funding that's being made available through earmarks or whatever. So, but the cost reduction, that's a good thing. So, if we get the same value, yeah. Thanks for the question.
There's no need for us to convene in closed session. So, any matters for the placement on next tonight's agenda? Turn to me.